Donald Trump thinks yet again that he is being cheated out of a campaign, out of a victory. I put the tweet on your screen. Here's Donald J. Trump. Of course, there is large-scale voter fraud happening on and before Election Day. Why do Republican leaders deny what is going on? So naive. 30,000 likes, 12,200 retweets. Yeah, I think. Meanwhile, Mike Pence on Sunday news, on Sunday political shows, made the rounds basically saying that having to reassure America that if they lose, that they will respect the winner. We really take for granted the person who gives a concession speech. We take that as a given. But do you realize that if in 2000, if Al Gore did not concede the second time and he just indignantly called for us to keep fighting, do you know everybody and their mama, including me, would have been out there still fighting I mean, like it could have gone into places where we don't want American politics to go over the transition in power. Right. There are some things that are worth fighting for. Clearly, there are some things that are worth like dying for. I was going to say like a movie, you know, like Morpheus said, there's some things worth dying for. Right. There are things worth fighting for. There's things worth dying for. What's not worth fighting for is the transition of power. Let me rephrase that. What's not worth fighting against is the peaceful transition of power in America. The reason it's not worth fighting against is because you fighting against one sets up someone else to fight against yours, right? If we have fought tooth and nail against the transition of power from Clinton, from Clinton to Bush in 2000, then we would have established the format and the precedent for Republicans to challenge us and fight against the transition of power from going forward. We take for granted that person who gives a concession speech, but that's really the only institution that facilitates that peaceful transfer of power. Or at best, it prevents the rage and anger of half of America losing, developing into a full-fledged nationwide riot that turns into a battle, that turns into a war and divides America. That's it. And so with Donald Trump setting this up, I think it's two things that's happening. One, three things possibly, maybe two. One, it's Donald Trump being Donald Trump, being the spoiled brat that he is. Here's a rich white man who probably never had anyone tell him no, probably never lost anything that he wasn't okay with losing, probably has never had to deal with defeat because even bankruptcies worked out in his favor, right? Here's a grown white man, rich old white man who is getting his butt whipped. In this election, he's probably honestly going to lose like Mondale lost. And he's not used to that. And so I think part of it is just the spoiled rantings of a child, of a man child. The second half of it is, I think, it's strategic. I think he's trying to encourage his rabid voters to show up at the polls or threaten to show up at the polls, subsequently causing a depression in the turnout for Clinton. Because he's asking people as soon as they vote to go into those other neighborhoods and watch the polls at the other neighborhoods, right? And if this is an open carry state, then you're going to have armed white people in black neighborhoods on voting day. So he's trying to use that as a means of suppressing the vote, in my opinion. The third thing, well, not the third thing. The other thing is that he is undermining his own voters, because if you keep telling your people that it's rigged, you are going to incite some to become more active and possibly violent, but then you're going to depress others. We're going to say, why should I even go out? They're just going to vote. They're going to stop Trump from winning anyway. The last thing is, you never know what's going on in Trump's mind. He very well may honestly believe that this election is rigged. And by rigged, He's really muddying the waters. Let's be clear here. He's muddying the waters. He has two narratives about how this election is rigged. One, I kind of agree with them on. The media is in the tank for Hillary Clinton. Period. End of discussion. That's it. They should be in the tank for Hillary Clinton because Donald Trump is such an anathema to America, right? Nobody says that you as a media outlet have to give voice to a buffoon or to someone who is racist and dangerous as Donald Trump. Nobody says that, right? The problem is, the media took advantage of the ratings that they were getting from Trump in the primaries. Then they created a monster that they couldn't control. And now they're all trying to absolve themselves by being completely in bed with Hillary Clinton. That's the problem. It's the media's fault, no matter how you buy it. I have no requirement on my show to try to paint Trump in a positive light so that I can offer something that's unbiased or gives the appearance of being unbiased. So I'm not going to knock the media for being against Trump because Trump is worthy to be against. If you're going to be against anybody, be against Trump, right? But they created Trump. They gave him nearly $2 billion of free advertisement during the last 2 years because it was beneficial for them. It was free clicks for them. They didn't have to pay to get Trump in it. They just aired Trump and they had nonstop coverage. So the media, it's their creation. Now, that's his first attack. It said the media's in the bed with Hillary Clinton. Yes, they are, Donald Trump. And hopefully next time 2020 comes around, they'll have a Republican candidate who we can at least get back to the appearance of balanced coverage because they're going above and beyond to try to fight against Trump. Call it fair. You didn't call it unfair when you got $2 billion of free coverage. It's good for the goose. It's good for the gander. But the other thing that he's doing that is far more nefarious than just bitching about the mainstream media being in bed for Hillary Clinton, which they are. The one that's far more nefarious is this idea of voter fraud, not election fraud, but voter fraud. And here's why it's nefarious. One, it's specifically creating a problem that doesn't exist. Keep in mind, I'm saying voter fraud, not election fraud. Voter fraud does not exist in any meaningful, substantive way, unless he's talking about this. He's trying to give you the picture of, do I have a picture of that guy? It's this dude from Twitter who, I don't know if this was parody. I don't know what it was, but this is the picture that Donald Trump, oh, there it is. Okay, I'm putting it up on your screen now. This is a guy on Twitter who has 2468 fake IDs. And he's saying the new fakes are in, ready to make Hillary president. This is what Donald Trump, I think this has to be parody, right? Clearly it is. But this is what Donald Trump is talking about when he says voter fraud. Now, election fraud is what has been documented during the primaries. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people, names disappearing off the rolls just before the election in New York in the Democratic primaries, right? That's not what Trump is talking about. And so he's actually getting the support of a lot of angry progressives because he's saying voter fraud, and they feel like he's speaking to the fraud that happened from the Democratic Party. No, he's specifically talking about voter fraud, where you have individuals who go to the polls and vote. This is his words. These are his words, 5, 10, or 15 times for Hillary Clinton. And he's targeting this voter fraud as something that happens in minority communities, right? So he's not speaking to the institutional fraud that happens. He's not talking about the fraud that happens on a precinct level, that could potentially happen on the precinct level with the leaders of the precinct and then on the state level or the county level where you have the supervisor. He's not talking about that. He's talking about poor people and black people and minorities who are going to go vote for Hillary Clinton 5, 10, 15 times, his words. So he's muddying the waters, trying to create this general mesh of nonsense that if we lose, we only could possibly lose because because the system is rigged and the media is out to get us, which they are, and voters are going to vote 10, 15 times for Hillary Clinton, which they are not. And what this does is give him a nice fog of political war cover where everything is confused and any political casualties or anything that happens is all fodder to blame his loss, on which he can blame his loss. You ever had somebody who lies just enough to muddy the situation, to confuse everything, and then they get out and they escape free because before you knew it, you didn't know what the hell happened, but everything was confused? That's what Donald Trump is doing. He is not speaking to the concerns of progressives who experience election fraud. He's speaking to the psychosis of Republican parties who are insisting on all of these draconian policies to make it more difficult for minorities to vote when he says voter fraud. And he's very specific is the word. He's very specific in his language. Show me when he discusses institutional level election fraud, and we'll have a conversation that I might have to agree with him on. Just like I agree, the media is in the tank for Hillary Clinton. But I also agree they sure as hell gave him $2 billion of free coverage. So goose gander.